CEO of Del Grande Dealer Group, also DGDG. Welcome to the show, Jeremy Beaver. Thanks for being here.
Hi guys, how you doing? I mean, you guys have
Well,
covered a lot of topics here already. I mean, we got Ferraris, we got stocks. I mean, let's go.
I know we got into some topics that we don't typically get into, so it's got to keep it fun for the audience. I'm pretty sure half our, if not all of our audience is over there flipping some coin or something
yeah.
at a certain point in time. You know it's the top
Well,
when like you have like
a-
your grandpa or someone calling you asking you about something. You're like, now I'm getting
actually,
worried.
actually, that even brings up, we didn't even mention online gambling, which we probably shouldn't, but that is also, you
Oh,
take like super high risk personalities and wanting to win big. I think that's if we should do a show about anything, what percentage of auto sales managers, salespeople will do online gambling, right? So, and we won't ask you that, Jeremy. We're not going to
Yeah,
ask you that.
hours of the day. What are they doing at the dealership? Well, it'll
That's
be
right.
a new spot. It'll be great.
Jeremy
That's right.
Beaver, Jeremy, how
Welcome.
our classic question: how's biz?
We're just trying to figure it all out, just like everyone, like Lonnie. Kind of month by month right now, just trying to determine what's happening with the government and tariffs, and in the heart of Silicon Valley, that stock market's going up and down every day. So we're living the dream, but we're trying our best with our 1,000 team members and just making sure we do everything we can every day. So life is good.
Jeremy, prior to the show, we were discussing your segment, me and Sam, and we sort of think of you as this canary for the auto industry of where the technology is going. You are in the heart of Silicon Valley. And so, I mean, first of all, you have the consumer base who is likely most just adept and open to some digital experience or AI driven purchase, right? Like you are the future. They say like what happens in Silicon Valley happens everywhere else within 5 or 10 years later, right? Like just let's give Uber as an example, right? Started there, expanded everywhere, took a decade. Um, Tell us a little bit about just today at your store, right? Like what is the buying and selling and servicing experience look like? Just give
Yeah,
a
I
high
think
level overview.
Yeah, I think it's maybe good or bad that it starts here, When it's a good trend, we like it. When it's a little tricky, then, who knows? So, we're obviously in the heart of EV world here. 30 to 40% of all vehicle sales have some alternative powertrain. Obviously, with the news last week, it's going to get a little bit tricky on that $7,500, as that's one of the large drivers for consumers here to get the carpool lane. There are charging mechanisms here. People are used to. They do have range anxiety at times, but not as much in the country. So that is a trend that's going to be very volatile over the next 90 days. But for us, I think the fundamentals in the car business are still very similar across the industry. Having an unbelievable team that can provide a world-class guest experience for people that are buying and servicing their vehicles. We just try to really kind of double down on the technology front. So that comes into high use of iPads, high use of technology through communication, a lot of data that we use. We have full-time data teams that are running algorithms for business intelligence. So it's maybe just a little bit heightened, but at the end of the day, it's blocking and tackling, it's selling cars. We think about it really in a way that we call culture tech. The technology needs to be world class. It needs to be modern. It needs to be, just like everything else you use. But it really means nothing unless you have humans and teams that can execute on a day-to-day basis. That's really where we believe the 1+1=3 strategy lives here in the future of car dealerships.
Jeremy, if you're still bound by the car gods, right? And the rules of the game. But if you are, let's just say, some months or years ahead of some dealerships across the country when it comes to tech, just deployment execution, what would you say is you mentioned, sorry, you mentioned the need for or people, right? How important is that still to the customer experience in your store? Like truthfully, give us that insight to the human and just the interaction. How important is that really? If you are, if I'm assuming you're leveraging all the stuff out there, so I'm curious to know how that's kind of being used in your store.
Yeah, well, I could be horribly wrong, but we think that the humans play such a vital role in this business still. It's a very, tech forward strategy that's moving, but at the end of the day, people want to come see a car, they want to come test drive a car, they want someone to talk to when they need it. It's a big purchase. There's, all this new technology in these vehicles, and so we believe the human aspect or our team aspect is the most critical function. With that being said, we believe that technology should create extreme efficiency and extreme performance in a go forward model, especially in these businesses. When you think about the cost of land, the cost of buildings, the OEM requirements, all of that stuff, it's not getting cheaper. And at the end of the day, margin when you're buying and selling a car, it's not that great when you think about all the effort that goes into it. And so we really believe that blend is how the future of automotive retail is going to work. So think about someone instead of selling 12 cars, they need to be selling 15, 18, 20. They need to be, it needs to become more of a career that can continue to grow. We focus a lot on career development. Just like you talked about with Lonnie and with the other large groups today, the Morgan Auto Group, they are focusing on development and leadership training and opportunity for growth and being able to have the automotive sector that doesn't have this 50, 60, 70% attrition that is really a bad model for everyone. And so we're using tech to scale, and we use some automotive tech, but we're focusing in bringing non-automotive tech that every other business uses in the world today into automotive. And so it becomes this kind of single-minded platform strategy that's through consumer journey plus employee retention and strategy.
Can you double click on that? What do you mean? Like, what actual tech are you bringing to your store? You mentioned earlier you have a big team of data scientists, which I wanted to dig into that. But let's just start with this. What's this non-automotive tech that you're bringing into your store?
Yeah, I think the first thing that everyone like super hot button, the word of the day or the word of the quarter is AI, right? Like everyone wants to use like throw AI into whatever product they're selling. The most important thing we believe in AI as it moves forward is the data on which it lives into and which is normalized from all of these sources. In automotive over the last 5, 7, 10 years, each dealership has 20, 30, 40 different sources that they have data. None of it is normalized. None of it comes together in any sort of central hub. And then everyone is either marketing or communicating out of 5 to 7 of them. So it's not necessarily a proper data set when you want to utilize and maximize AI. Especially when you talk about like agentic AI that can learn and can grow on its own and then actually be able to have, different models that are running out of it. And so that's what we're really focused on, using large scale models in, today we use Azure as our data lake, but using it as a central repository that can then essentially operate our business, whether that's predictive financials, whether that's predictive demand, or in future customer communication. That's a really, really important piece for us moving forward.
The $10 billion question. What are you building in-house today? Because to me, when I hear a dealer spending time building stuff in-house, that's expensive, that takes up your time, and that's an opportunity. What are you building in-house?
Yeah, I think call it consumer journey models. That's the easiest way to say it without breaking all our NDAs and secret sauce that we have here. But think about if you were a consumer and you were able to go and have this either My Garage format, or you had an ability to have a relationship with a dealer, whether it's your current car, what it's worth, when it needs service, your household, individual offers, all of the different things we believe are really, really valuable. We believe in the future, what is even more valuable is when we start to layer automotive industry data plus OEM data. And so think about the ability where an OEM can connect to consumers on really A to Z, from the time the vehicle is built and when it's ordered and deposited, as against to all the way down from when they're servicing their vehicle and they're looking for their new one. We believe that that marketing journey and that communication journey is what is going to drive retention in the future. And it's not necessarily
Mm.
just with the retention on the OEM, unfortunately. I've been doing this for 20 years or a little bit more. And so when you think about before, it was like, well, my brother's dad only drove X brand. And so I'm only going to have these cars. That's not how the world works, right? They're looking for the newest people are looking for the newest, coolest, best cars in tech when they come back into the market, or longest range, or greatest strategy. And so we believe groups like ours, whether it's regional groups or super regional groups or the publics, they're going to actually be, it's going to be a retention to the brands and the dealer groups with the brands, with the OEMs. The partners, our OEM partners, are very, very important to us. But the more scale we have, the more that we're actually going to be retain the customer, not only for the brand, but for the dealer group as well. And so we really focus on that for a long-term cycle. That also then bleeds into fixed operations. And so people don't really want to drive 60, 70, 80 miles to go get their oil change. They want to be in major metro markets, have world-class service, and then that is going to really complete the ecosystem. And so we're focused on data sets that really look for 1, 3, and 5 year journeys, which we believe really build the value. You take that for our dealership, just to, sorry, go a little bit more,
No, no,
take
please.
a little bit more. That's what we think actually also builds value in these dealerships and dealer groups in the future. So today they trade on multiples of EBITDA, 4, 5, 7, 10 times. When these dealerships have significantly different value in the future because of technology, and they start trading more like tech companies or SaaS companies, that's where they also become the ability to invest in larger and different scales. And so we believe that's another competitive advantage we'll have in the future.
Dude, you're like, I'm hearing you speak, and it's like 4 or 5D chess, right? Let me break this down for a second, and then I want your feedback. Your take is pretty simple here. It's, hey, we are all in on improving and extending retention of the customer. If we retain these customers for longer, that will increase the lifetime value of that customer and make them more valuable to our store. If we do that, we are essentially, if we can achieve that, we are essentially creating a SaaS like business, because that person is coming to buy a new vehicle every couple of years. That is a much valuable business to own than a business that is a leaky bucket, or that customer is buying one car and never returning, or maybe 1 in 10 is returning, or whatever. And so your entire thesis is, and here's another important point, which I heard you say, is you're, or most of what I've heard you say, is you're focusing a lot on the customer communication piece, the front end, which is, I would say, contrary to what I expected you to say, because I was going to say, what's more important, AI in my front end, like, consumer facing, or back end, my DMS, inventory, stuff like that. It seems though that you believe, based on your actions and where you're putting money, that the back end will be solved in large part by the industry and by vendors, but the front end is what you're saying, I want to control this and own this process to the atomic unit. And the only way to do that is to build it in house. And that's why financially it pencils out, because I believe I can expand that lifetime customer value with my customers and keep them coming back. So everything I just said, right, wrong? Did I miss
Yeah,
anything?
I think pretty much spot on. But I think we've spent the last 3 years really focusing on data aggregation, and so we're a little bit ahead of probably the industry on being able to aggregate all that back end data you just talked about. We've had that. We run our own financial systems. We run our own kind of propensities on inventory. We run a lot of that, and so we're definitely moving towards more a consumer focused view when it comes to how people want to be communicated with. And so maybe we're moving on to the next piece. I think it is critically important. While AI and tech and communication is important, every day what starts at DGDG is our team. And so 1,000 team members, how do we make their job better, easier, higher performance, more efficient? How do they make more money so they have longevity plans? How do they communicate with guests better? I mean, we have full-time personal development leadership coach. We have full-time training programs.
Wow.
We have dealer academy. So as much as we talk, we're known for tech in the industry and in the heart of Silicon Valley. We are as much, focused in the people or, human culture development as anyone else in the industry while we're doing this tech. So that's really the what we think the secret sauce is being able to do both and being ahead. And that's what will really create longevity as we continue to scale.
Would you ever would you ever pull off a Jeff Bezos and take your cost center, turn it into a profit center, right? Would you like license this stuff to other dealers? You mentioned trading on SaaS multiples. I mean, you're building a lot of this in-house already. Is there like a joint venture, or is that something that's has to have crossed your mind at some point?
It is. We're well versed in the tech space. We got quite a few partnerships that I won't put on this show for you right now. You'll see, but we build our own tech. We sell some of our own tech. We partner and
Oh,
do a whole bunch of stuff. We invest in a lot of early stage automotive tech. That's part of
very
one of our
nice.
arms at DGDG Tech. So we're in there, but I will. I'll not get anyone in trouble right now. So
So
In
so
there like
Jeremy,
swimwear.
along those lines, we have a comment from social Adam Swithin asks a great question. Love the idea of maximizing a CDP and analyzing all the data to increase retention. How much do you anticipate to have to invest in the CDP to make this happen? Budget question.
yeah, I think for us, we do have structure around CDP, but again, I'm going to say pretty advanced on structure on data and being able to have flows through marketing clouds and also through CRM data, DMS extraction plus industry data. I think if you were a dealership or dealer group, I would be definitely looking at a CDP, making sure that you have the ability to create the segments and the silos that you need. But at the end of the day, the CDP is just going to normalize a lot of things. The consumer journey build out is very robust. If done wrong, it doesn't work well, and if not managed on a day to day, especially we're in California, so everything's legal here. You got to make sure that you're really doing an amazing job to do that. I think if you're a standalone single point store, vendors and partners are the most critical way to do this today because
Yep.
it's just
Have to.
it's
No
easier,
scale.
faster, it's scale, and why screw around with normalizing data from all the different sources.
So what would you say to a dealer group that's larger that hasn't adopted a CDP yet, that's kind of behind the curve on that? What is the urgency, or what is the need for that? What would
I
you
think
say
about
to
it. Yeah, I
that
think
group?
about it in two ways. I think there's an unbelievable opportunity for marketing efficiency. So what the dollars that you would put in, you should be getting out 3, 4, and 5 times out when done properly. You think about, people say email is free, but email's not really free. It takes a lot of work, a lot of scrubbing, a lot of
Yeah.
deliverability, a lot of content creation, a lot of dynamic ad insertion. So it's not free, but when done properly, when you think about open rates, click through rates, engagement rates, when you can boost those by 10, 15, 18%, you can really start to have those retention mechanisms. You can start to create your own sale mechanisms. There's a lot to do when you operate a CDP. And so what I would say is if you had your block of advertising and you spent X amount of dollars, I would be looking at your low 10%, your low 15% now, and start taking that out and investing in data aggregation or data normalization so that you can then boost your advertising in the future
And
because it's not an easy journey.
and with all the different companies and vendors that are coming out of the woodwork, I think this is fascinating. You're playing checkers in this digital space, in this tech space. You're in an area where and you've probably got a lot of people around you who are very well versed. Which vendors are there any particular vendors or steps you would take initially if you wanted to undertake a project of creating this CDP or doing some of the other things that you're farther advanced down the road
Here
doing?
comes the
What advice
plug.
would you
Here
give to
comes
our
the
dealers?
plug.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no
no plug. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no plug here. I think that again, what you dealers have to figure out
Yeah.
is what they want to do with their kind of entire suite of products. I think
Yeah.
that adding just another software and another technology to log into and manage is like going to be the death of the car dealer because there's already like 40 to sell a car and 30 to like market and all these other things. So I think that getting into platform type strategies is going to be really, really important for automotive over the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. But there are large companies. I think, you got Impel listed here. We were early spin car as well. I think that they've come a long way. These are guys who are like technologists that are over there. They're like insanely good. I think the guys that at Treasure Data with Clarivoy are doing really good stuff with data and marketplaces. I think Cars Commerce is working on a ton of different stuff on aggregating their companies. Like, I think that there is like everyone is saying this kind of hub and spoke strategy is way more important in the future as opposed to 30 different vendors or 30 different platforms. That's a really important piece here.
So the one question that comes to mind, especially in the shadow of the CDK outage last year and data protection and hacking and all the other things, who owns the data, who protects the data, who has the liability with the data? The question from Ryan is super relevant here. from social. With building your own technology, are you holding on-premise data stores? Are you putting everything in the cloud? How do you think different about the protection of your data than a vendor might? Because a lot of these vendors that are creating these services for you will say, "Hey, we take on that liability by creating this service." You're preserving that liability within the group, I would imagine. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, two stages. Data security, obviously critically important. We are a CDK group, so everything's on CDK. So there is, data storage around that. And, we were one of the dealers that went through all those things. I would tell
We were
you,
too.
pretty
Yeah.
crazy. It was a year ago. We had
Yeah.
so many redundant systems on data that we were not really impacted too much because we had the ability to go extract our own data and operate our own systems, which was, knock on wood, nice at the time. Our data today sits in, we're a Microsoft shop, so we operate everything on the cloud, but there are redundancies on data backups because, clouds do go out and things, there's different server farms and different items. And so we kind of have a mix, like a hybrid, but most of the large processing is done cloud-based just because the size of the data.
So the CDP that you created, is that what gave you the backup? So when the CDK outage happened, you were able to still pull customer data and CRM data and RO data and preserve operations? Or how did that work? What was your redundancies that were created as a result of the systems you
Yeah,
have up and running?
it's a little less CDP and a more kind of data lake structure just because it has so many different flows. And you think about, like service data, sales data, aggregation data. CDP we use a little bit more for customer segments. That's really just the items that we use through a marketing function, marketing cloud, or communication channels. The data needs to be raw in format when it comes, but structured when you utilize it. So it's more necessarily in our internal kind of dashboarding, what we call DG Dash, which enables our financials plus our operational tools.
Jeremy, biggest challenge for you nowadays?
Uh, God, someone tweeting out and changing our lives in the auto industry every like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
Yes,
no
But
doubt.
that's a real, that's legit. I mean, that's a navigating expectations, marketing messaging. I get it.
Macro trends. I said that's the big one. I mean, this year we've had tariffs on, tariffs off. We have EV for us is on and off. I think tariffs just got changed again in Japan here, like a little bit earlier. So the brands that are there. So we try to focus on the controllables. What can we control? There's been a lot of uncontrollables already this year. And so what we can do is make sure we have an unbelievable team that we support, train, and coach every day. And then, continue to build our tech to create more efficient, performance-driven operations. We are car dealers. We are tech entrepreneurs as well. But at the core of what we do, we sell service cars with our team. And so that's what we're going to focus on every single day.
Very, very insightful. Go ahead, Sam.
No, no, I just think it's interesting. I know most groups want to keep a lot proprietary, but as you venture down this road with technology, with AI, it's fascinating. Most of the dealers that are watching this show right now are overwhelmed by the number of AI solutions and technology solutions that are out there. And to your point, the North Star in automotive needs to be that customer and supporting the employee, a person in delivering the best experience to that end consumer. And at any moment when the employee competes with the technology or competes with the AI, it breaks. And I've seen it in my own world where an employee will misunderstand the purpose, the intent of that AI or that technology, and then it breaks it. And I'm just fascinated by all the different things you're doing to help deliver a better experience and better tools to your employees. And as we wrap, if there's one thing that someone who's not in Silicon Valley, who's not surrounded by the type of resources that you are, should be doing right now, what would that thing do? What would that technology or that AI solution or tool be that could help their employees deliver that best experience to their customers?
Yeah, Sam, well, you're spot on, by the way. We have some of the best ideas we draw on the whiteboard, and they sound great and they're technology. And then when it comes to people using them, they don't
Yeah.
work, they break, it's completely worthless. We make more mistakes than we win, just so you know. Like there's a lot of those going on here. But I think, what I continue to give dealers, and we're sharers, right? We want everyone, we want all boats to rise, we want the industry to continue to evolve. we really focus on, if you were a dealer to get into the space, you need to make sure that you can, whatever you want to bite off, like make sure you can chew it. And so if you
Yeah.
want to get into marketing, then take it and take it in small form, reduce it to its simplest form, and then take that on. You like, don't just go and like jump in and say like, I'm going to do all of these things all at once. Make sure you have a culture of change. Make sure you have a culture that is ready to adapt that change that you want, but really like make sure that you're doing things that fit your business. Don't take what I've just said and like try to go do it. Like
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah.
for 15 years, building it from scratch. Like
Yeah.
I said, people know we're going to try stuff and it's going to break. Like that's our culture. If your team like doesn't want to go do 5 more new softwares, don't do it. Do one and do it really, really well in a basic version. You will get more performance and adoption out of that than anything else.
So as we wrap, just one last question, because I think this is a fascinating question. If you could redesign a car dealership, a single point dealership from scratch, from ground zero, what's one thing that's traditionally acceptable in automotive as core to an auto dealer or core to running an auto dealership? What would be the one thing that you would eliminate, or the first thing you would eliminate from that
Yeah.
core?
It's like a 16-day conversation offsite that we could have. But
Let's
I think
go.
if I had one, that could be the new CD. That's it. We could go off and have
Yeah.
like a summit. It's another
Yeah.
business model we got today.
Yeah.
Another
I think
business.
if I had one item, is if there was ever a situation where if you opened all these dealerships and there was one system, right, where you could go out and it would just do everything. So, kind of like a real ERP that other businesses operate on, in modern tech stacks, where it would do sales, service, connect to the OEM, where, it would do all of it together. That would make it so much more efficient for the people
Yes.
and a better
Yes.
consumer journey. I don't even know if that happens in my lifetime. I know a couple of, probably your partners and vendors, or they've been trying to do it. But
Yeah.
what needs to happen is the dealers, the OEMs, and the partners have to come together as one. And I think they're getting closer and closer every day, but
Yeah.
it still gets tricky because everyone at times thinks they know best and want to do their own, program. So that'd be my holy grail or dream, my unicorn. But we'll see if we can help contribute to that a little bit at DTDG.
There's the call to
Incredible.
action within the industry. Jeremy Beaver, CEO, DGDG Del Grande Dealer Group. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your perspectives. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate me having me, and we'll talk soon.